My name is Ken McClymont. I'm based in Greenock and my art form is painting, fine art. When I was at school, I found that I was good at drawing and painting, and it continued from there. And when I left school, I knew that I wanted to go to art college. When I was about 11, my gran took me to Amsterdam on a holiday. She took me around Europe on a bus. And I went to the Rijksmuseum and saw fantastic work, including The Night Watch by Rembrandt, which if you see when you're 11 years old, you remember. And I don't know what it was, but I just decided, not then, but later on in life, that that's what I wanted to do. The art process is work, really, and just to keep working away at what it is that I feel that's inside me that has to come out, really. It's not, I can't really explain what, because I go through phases of different things, but most of the abstract work is just really me and what I feel makes a good piece of art, which should be timeless and attractive or ugly. It should create conflict in certain areas, or it should be, some people may find the conflict pleasing, and that's really what my art is about. Emotions inspire the process and colours inspire the process. Looking at other works inspire the process. Music inspires the process a great deal. I listen to music here all the time when I'm working. And that's basically most of what inspires me. It doesn't take much to inspire me to do anything, really, when it comes to working and painting. Favourite part, which may sound crazy, but it's actually making preparing the canvases when they're pristine, and just looking at this white space for as long as I have to before I start making marks on the canvas or the paper. It's just when my imagination starts to take over, and it can be a sound, it can be a colour which comes into my mind, and I just start doing it. It's, given the type of work, it may sound strange, but that's what it is. Not especially. No, but when working with different materials, you need to know a bit about those materials and will they last. If you buy cheap paint, it won't last as long as expensive paint. The colour will fade. So you find that the colours in my work will last for a long time, because I know that if you don't prepare the canvas properly, if you don't prepare the surface properly, the colours are absorbed and taken out of the paint, and it's not a good thing to do. Sometimes when I've been sort of penniless, not that I've ever been penniless, but you tended to buy cheaper materials and regret it, because you may have produced a very good piece of work, which may be a good piece of work for 3 or 4 weeks, and then it turns out it starts to fade, the colours mute, and you just end up with something that you're not happy with. Well, the education helped a lot. I went to Dundee Art College at a very good time, from 1977 to 82, so right through punk years, and started getting into jazz music, punk music, blues music, every type of music, which again helped me sort of form the ideas that I had about art. And the training that I had was very figurative based, and Dundee was very figurative, so we had to learn to draw the figure, anatomy, a lot of still life painting, a lot of figure painting, and composition work, and that's sort of served me well throughout because I can turn my hand to do figurative work, if that's what I decide that's what I want to do. And I enjoy that. I enjoy the fact that I can paint like most people would call a painter paints, which is nice. I don't think there's any great mystery about getting involved in painting at all. It's just, you can pick things up relatively easily these days from shops and just start doing it, just to start looking at things. As I've said, I spend a lot of time just looking at a blank space, and whatever comes into my head, that's what I put down. And in terms of the techniques sort of come through experimentation and time and looking at other works, other pieces of art that you like, or it's the galleries in Scotland are fantastic. Even in the McClymont galleries, fantastic pieces of work in there. You just go and be inspired by things and to start doing something. Yes, it does. It's just, I like the big sky, and I like, as I say, I like the McClymont Museum on a regular basis, looking at the objects that they have and the history of the area. And it's a great place for walking as well. I love walking down Lunderston Bay. I love walking there in the mornings. Yes, just to continue working for as long as humanly possible, and to hopefully just to have a bigger audience that looks at my work and either appreciates it or doesn't appreciate it. I think the thing about art, and especially fine art, is that there's a huge amount of variety of work there, and not one thing is for everyone. And it's just to continue making the pieces that I personally am happy with, whether they be abstract work or figurative work, because people call this abstract. I don't call it abstract. So a painting, art, that's what I call it. When you start a piece, you start a conversation with it, and it tells you, don't touch me anymore, finished, which may sound, but again, it's like a piece of music. Music has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's things like that just work, or they don't work, and that's how I like to see my work. It's like hopefully a piece of two-dimensional music that people can look at for a long time and see different things in, because that's what inspired me to paint in the first instance, was the fact that you can look at a painting for as long as, and that's what to me makes good art. It's something that is going to hold your interest for a long, long, long time, and you will see things in it that you have not seen before, even though you may have looked at the same piece for years. And that's why you keep looking at old paintings, like Turner or Matisse. You keep seeing different things within them, which has come from the artist, and it's just to try and continue that process. Well, I think as a painter, you always feel a bit alone, so any sort of lockdown issues weren't really an issue, because we're used to working solitary, and that's, so we know that a lot of people suffered badly from isolation, but I think most artists that you talk to here would say, no, it's fine. Quite like the isolation, but it's nice it's lovely working here because we have a nice community of people, and we talk to each other, occasionally have coffee together and stuff like that, so it's a nice environment working. Yes, definitely, because as a result of going to art college, I got involved with drama, and so I also worked as a theatre director and designer, and that came about through working, because as a secondary subject. I had to do a secondary subject all the time. And I went into theatre design, and then I did a tiny bit of acting, which I decided to stop. I lived in London for a long while, and I ran a theatre. And at the same time as running the theatre, in the office I had a desk set up when I used to paint, without telling my bosses because it was in a different building. So I'd be painting at the same time as trying to read scripts and saying to meeting with companies and saying, "Oh, what's that on the table?" And it'd be my art. I used to do a lot of collages and stuff like that, stuff where I didn't have to make too much of a mess. But it's if you feel that you got to create something, and the theatre's a good different thing because it's very collaborative, and so you're working with a big team of people a lot of the time. And I worked in new plays a lot of the time, so not a lot of plays people know about, but I think that again they were sort of pieces of art with sort of individual voices and a language of their own, you know. And this is what we're trying to do here, is create a language that people, an international language that people understand, you know, that people get something from or don't get something from, you know. It doesn't upset me, people don't like the work, but if they like it, then fantastic.